Welcome back to another Excel video. This is part 2 of Excel 2010 tips and tricks. There's nothing in this video that requires you to have seen the first video, so just dive on in if you have just joined us. First thing is some cell selection. Very simple, elementary skill. What we'll find here is in column A is a list of months. If I click on January, hold shift down and then click on December, what it does is it selects everything in between the two cells that I had selected. It works across columns also, so if I click on cell A1, hold the shift button down, click on cell C30, it selects everything in between the two corners of the range that I have clicked on. A really useful one sometimes when you're doing big spreadsheets is the intersecting cell between A and 1. This one here causes the entire sheet to be selected. If you didn't want to select everything, you maybe wanted to exclude some of the cells, you can use the control button. So I'm going to select January through June, then I'm going to hold control down and select November and December. So if I just wanted to format certain cells, I could do so using that method. If I wanted to use keyboard shortcuts, I'm a fairly big fan of keyboard shortcuts, and my data series was quite long. This isn't super long, but it's still relevant. Is I can be in the top cell, I can hold the control and shift buttons down and press the down arrow, and it will select as far down as data is without a break. So if that went down several hundred rows, it would still work. Control shift down arrow and everything is selected. I can now go control up arrow, works the same way, but it doesn't select the cells. It just takes me to the top. What I wanted to show here was the format painter. A lot of people don't use this effectively. If I apply some formats, let's say that, I can click on the cell, click Format Painter, and I'll apply the exact same formatting to another cell. If you click Format Painter once, it will just apply it once. But if I click on a cell with some formatting, double click Format Painter, it will remain available and format every cell I click on until I re-click Format Painter. So very useful if you are trying to apply some universal formatting. What I tend to do is make my spreadsheet, it looks as plain as hell, and then at the end the last thing I do is go through and work on my formatting. Next thing I'm going to look at is some more finishing skills. The first thing is just hiding rows and columns. So the keyboard shortcut we just learned, Control Shift Down Arrow, is useful in this trick as well. So sometimes I prefer not to have the person interacting with this particular spreadsheet to be seeing all this blank space below. So I'm going to click on row 46, which is one row below the bottom of my table. I'm going to hold Control and Shift down, hit the down arrow. As you can see, it copies down to row 1 million, and I'm going to click Hide. I'm going to do the same up here. I'm going to start in column K. By clicking the K, it selects the entire column. Control Shift right arrow takes me across to column XFD. Hide that as well. And now what I've got is a very contained data entry place. Means that they're not distracted, they're not scrolling around, and no matter what happens with their computer, they're always zooming in on the part of the spreadsheet that you want them to. What I'm going to have a look at now is not necessarily Excel features, but two very useful ones if you're a PC user. on your keyboard you'll see a Windows key, particularly if you're using an external keyboard, and if you hit the Windows key and the Tab button, it almost looks like a Mac as it rotates through any screens you have open. So there's my Excel, there's Evernote, there's a web page, there's my desktop. So it's a great sexy looking little interface. If I hit Windows D, it takes me to my desktop. So I like those two Windows shortcuts, so I thought I'd share them with you. Alright, the next thing I'm going to have a look at is something that is very useful if you're entering a lot of data. Sometimes it can be easy to make a very small mistake, and there's a function inside Excel that will speak back to you what you have entered. Now I've placed it as a shortcut on my toolbar, and I'll show you where to find it in a second, but I'm just going to demonstrate it first. You see up on the right here I've got speak on enter.
Spell will now be spoken presented. 1.05, 1.1, 1.25, 1.53, 1.23, 1.05, 1.1, turned off, please enter.
So as you can see there, if I'm hastily trying to enter some data, and if I'm not a touch typist, I'm constantly looking up and down at my screen to check that I've written it correctly and entered it correctly, and sometimes your data has got some high stakes around it and you need to get it accurate, so to use speak on enter can be quite a useful way to make sure that you don't make mistakes. Now in terms of finding it, what you'll have to do is, if you click on a cell, right up on the top here you'll see, if you hover on this down arrow, customize quick access toolbar. So what I want to do is click on more commands, and it opens a larger Excel options window. Now in the window that you see here there's a left and a right column. If you click on popular commands, there's a down arrow next to it, there's one called commands not in the menu. So if you scroll down through this one, you'll see a variety of things, and you might actually be interested in some of those for your own purposes. If we get down to S, what we will find is the speak on enter speak cells. So you can choose that, click add, and you're in business. So it's quite a neat thing to have if you are doing a lot of data entry. Alright, one more very elementary thing, but often when you're learning Excel you skip past the elementary stuff because you want to get straight into the good stuff. What's been great about Excel 2010 and some changes it made into the way it was presented in terms of what's called the Excel back end. If you click on the File tab, what it brings up is a list of options for you, and if you click on Recent, what you'll find is two columns. One is Recent Workbooks, another one is Recent Places, and you can see I've got on the right hand side under Recent Places I've got two folders pinned, which means that they will always be there. So if I pin another one, Z, it jumps up, and no matter what happens, every time I click on this recent box, that folder will be available. What I can also do is pin spreadsheets, so particular files can be pinned and available at all times. So recent files is a fantastic addition, and if you are working consistently with the same documents or inside the same folders, this particular shortcut is for you. The next thing I'm going to show is fantastic for people like myself who sometimes my fingers work faster than my brain, and I close a file without saving it properly. I see the message that it's asking me to save, but I somehow don't click the right button. Have I lost the file forever? No, if I'm lucky, I can get it back. So to do that, I click on Info, click on Manage Versions, and there's a button that says Recover Unsaved Workbooks. So what it will do is it will open a window of files that I have not saved but still exist inside my Excel cache, so it's possible to get those files back. Now, to make sure that that particular fantastic option is available to you, you need to click on File, Options, and when you get to the options window, you click on Save. There is a checkbox here that allows you to just play with some of the options here. So what this second just indented checkbox says, keep the last autosave version if I close without saving, that has to be checked. If that option is checked, then you are able to use this Recover Unsaved Workbooks option. So turn it on now. The next trick is about locking and hiding cells. This can be very useful when you create forms for various people to fill out for you. You can stop them making a mistake, or you can stop them from interacting with a part of a spreadsheet that you do not want them to. So what I've got here, and the example I'm going to use, is a basic product order form. Over on the right hand side of the screen in columns N and O you'll see a product list, and in the top corner in columns A, B, C and D you'll see an order form. So what we want is to allow the customers to interact only with these grey cells here, so the ones that I've just selected. We want them to be able to choose their items, adjust their quantities, but nothing else. We don't want them interacting with the cost or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is, by default Excel has protected all cells, so we want to unprotect some of them so that the customer can still interact with them. So I'm going to select these grey ones. I'm going to use keyboard shortcut Control 1. I'm going to go to the tab right at the far up right called Protection, and I'm going to uncheck the locked box. So that means that these cells are unlocked. Everything else is locked. Now, locking something has no impact whatsoever normally until you protect the sheet. So I'm in the Review tab already, but let's go back to the Home tab. You'd click on the Review tab and you'd click Protect Sheet. You have an option to put a password in if you want to, and you can control a whole lot of things that you want to allow them to do or not do. I'm just going to say OK. By default it allows you to select locked cells and unlocked cells, but nothing else. So when I click OK, the icon up here now says Unprotect Sheet, so that says it's locked. And if I click on a cell here, well, these are one of the locked cells, and I click Delete, it's going to tell me that I can't do that. So the protection's working. But what I can do is I can still interact with these cells, because these are the ones that I unlocked. So that protection is very useful, but what you do have to remember is that by default everything is locked, so you have to unlock the cells that you want to remain available for access. The second part that I wanted to illustrate was the hiding of formulas. Even though a cell is locked, they can still see the formula here. We might not want that. We might want to keep that hidden in case it's calculating some discount or something like that that may be a bit sensitive. So I am going to select these cells because they contain formulas. I'm going to go, firstly I'm going to unprotect the sheet. I'm going to go Control 1, and I'm also going to click Hidden. So there we go, Hidden. Now I'm going to protect the sheet again. And what we'll see is that you can no longer see any of the formulas. So if I adjust this quantity to 5, everything still works, but these numbers are just auto-calculating by magic. People cannot see the formula, they cannot delete it, it's just happening for them. So the ability to protect cells is very useful. The one thing that we did that's worth tinkering with if you are creating things for others is the options within the protect sheet. So the two that I typically work with are these top two. I'm going to unselect the first item, select lock cells. Now when I use the spreadsheet, the user cannot even click on any of these cells. What they can do is click on the ones that you've allowed them access to. So for something like an order form, maybe an expense claim form, a data entry form for an athlete to fill in, whatever your purpose is, locking and protecting can be very, very useful. This trick is about inserting hyperlinks. If you're creating a file that has a number of spreadsheets, hyperlinks are a great way to put a little bit of whiz-bang into them and really allow people to interact and move around the spreadsheet almost like a website. So what I've created here is a series of headings. They correspond to different tabs in this workbook, and I just want to insert hyperlinks to allow people to get there quickly. So if I click on a cell, I've typed the words click here in the cell, I right click hyperlink. This little form pops up and it asks me what I want to hyperlink to. I could hyperlink to a website, I could hyperlink to another file, or I could hyperlink to somewhere in this document. So I can even put email addresses and so on in there, but I'm going to put a place in this document. Click, and now it lists all the places in the document. I can choose from them. So I'm going to choose the page called data entry, and I'm going to select it to go to cell A10. I'll do another one of those, hyperlink, going to the page data validation, and I want this cursor to go to cell E1. And there we go. It's just taking me quickly to another part of the spreadsheet. What I often go is something like this as well. So not only can they link directly there, they can also link back. What I'm also going to show you is that you could also be very creative and pretty with some of your dashboards or whatever you've created by using colourful little buttons here. So I can click on that shape and use that to hyperlink somewhere. So now this box is a hyperlink that takes me to a place. As I mentioned before, I could hyperlink a cell so I can select the email address. I can put my email address in there, and away I go. So now when that's clicked on, it's going to take me straight to that. I could also tidy up this text to display. So it looks a bit nicer. I could also do pretty things like inserting a picture to be my hyperlink. So if I had a bunch of athletes that were going to be using it, I could put a picture of their face and that would hyperlink to their particular page in the worksheet. So hyperlinks very useful. You can navigate around, you can make them look pretty by using shapes, pictures, you can link to email addresses or websites, and really creates a feel of a spreadsheet that's not actually all about Excel, it's about something a little bit more smooth.